Welcome back to Astroline, presented by Carbach. Todd Callis along with Steve Sparks, and we are joined by the manager of the Houston Astros, Dusty Baker, down in West Palm Beach, Florida. Dusty, thanks for joining us. I know games are right around the corner. It must be exciting. How's camp been so far?
Well, it's been great so far. I mean, almost everybody's, really healthy, and I'm impressed on the shape that guys came in. Guys that left with the stomach now have flat stomachs, and I'm serious. And these guys, they really put in the time and effort. It's a little easier, I think, when you go to the playoffs. Deep into the playoffs, you don't have as much time to get out of shape, and I think that helped us. I see some quality arms, some good young players. Especially some of the young players, especially some of the young Latin players that came in, a few days later because they had to quarantine, like most of us did. And I'm very impressed with the competition that's going to be for some of these jobs.
It seemed like early on in the spring, there's some latitude for the managers if they don't want to go 9 innings based on pitchers. Is that just a game-to-game basis if you decide with another manager if you want to go 7 innings or shorter?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what we have and what they have. And you certainly don't want to put any undue pressure on these guys, because you really don't have much time to get ready. If you don't come to spring training kind of ready, it's tough. It's not like the old days where you came to spring training to get in shape. You have to come in shape. And, this Sunday is coming very, very quickly. And usually, like before, you had at least a couple weeks before you start playing games. But these guys, they just the first day was yesterday, and then we have live pitching tomorrow. And which I know as a player, I hated that because the pitchers are always way ahead of us. And, they would take pride in breaking your bat and talk stuff on you when they did it. And but our guys are looking pretty good, and they got a good attitude about the upcoming season.
Jesse, for me, it seems like some people are sliding the Astros. You guys were 2 games below 500 last year. Maybe that's part of it. But, man, you guys look really strong on paper to me.
Well, we do look strong on paper. We still have to fill that huge hole, by George Springer's departure. George is a superstar. It's hard to replace a superstar. So some of the guys are going to have to, pick it up a little bit more. Hopefully we get a surprise or two, out of the rookies that you maybe didn't count on. I always try to leave room for, like a surprise. And, like I said, early in the year, though, you hope that your pitching and defense carries you early in the year because, defense is a constant, and our guys take pride in playing defense. They work extremely hard on it. And, usually our offense, comes around a little later, as the weather gets warmer and, excuse me, and as guys get more ABs to get their timing. So, we're really stressing pitching and defense, especially early.
And you've gotten a lot of questions about the leadoff spot, and I'm sure you probably have a few guys fill that spot and see what you like best, and you'll fiddle with it. But what makes some guys flourish at the top of the lineup and some guys really struggle with it?
Well, some guys like to be up first. Some guys like to be up in the early part of the game. Some guys like to be up after they've seen the pitcher go through, a couple guys in the lineup. And, a lot of it has to do with you accepting the responsibility of leading off. It's hard to put a guy up there that's a swinger and then expect him to work the count and get deep in the count. Well, he's setting himself up, for the strikeout, even though he'll see a lot of pitches to give the guys behind him, a heads up on, what the guy's fastball is doing or how sharp is his breaking ball. But, it's mostly about on base percentage to put the pitcher in the stretch early. Yeah. And then, you hope that, that person, can run. A lot of times they're getting away from the leadoff batter being a runner, but I would prefer speed at the top of the lineup, or like in the case of George, power, which is hard to find. So because you want him to put pressure on him right away, because the pitcher most of the time they don't warm up, but the starters don't warm up too much in the stretch out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
You know, they're mostly out of the windup, where the relievers warm up almost exclusively out of the stretch. And so you want to put him in the stretch right away, make him conscious of you at first base, where he has to look at you and concentrate on the hitter. I mean, that's in a perfect world. And I'm hoping that, you know, we got a perfect world coming up here soon.
Who are some of the leading candidates to be your leadoff hitter? And is Kyle Tucker a candidate? He's a guy who combines power and speed, or would you rather have him mix and match in the middle of the lineup?
Well, you know, he was our big RBI guy down in the order. And, you know, when he gets hot, I mean, he can, you know, carry a team for a while. And so you would prefer him down in the order or the middle part of the order, you know, to give you some power, some speed, some RBI production, and some, you know, potential stolen bases down in that part of the order to give the guys on deck, you know, better pitches to hit. So, you know, I haven't spoken to him about it. I've spoken to a couple guys, but, you know, I've spoken to Straw in particular. You know, I learned from the past last year, a lot of people would think that Altuve was a perfect candidate, but, you know, he wasn't, you know, crazy about hitting, you know, batting leadoff. Everybody's not, you know, just because you're short of stature, that doesn't mean that you know, like, you know, batting leadoff. And we had a couple other guys that I'm looking at in camp, you know, some guys that are, you know, depends on if they play at that time or if they make the team. You know, you got McCormick, we got a guy, Siri, that's very interesting that we got from San Francisco. You know, I mean, he has a lot of speed, has some power. So, you know, hopefully, you know, we use this time, you know, to experiment. And if it doesn't work, and then we'll go to, you know, alternate person. But you try not to have a different leadoff guy every day, because you want a guy to get comfortable in that spot. And like I said, it was a whole lot easier when you could just pencil George in, you know, into that leadoff spot. But, you know, we don't have George. We wish him well. So, you know, we got to come up with something else.
I checked out your baseball reference page today leading up to this interview, and you were actually a leadoff hitter as a starting player 33 times in your career, mostly early. And you said a guy has to like hitting leadoff. Did you like hitting leadoff as a player?
Well, you know, like I batted leadoff all through the minor leagues. You know, like you're just talking about my big league career. I batted leadoff in the minor leagues because I was a speed guy. You know, more than a speed and a batting average guy, more than I was a power guy. Then when I got to the big leagues, you know, they had me hitting behind, you know, like Hank Aaron in the middle of the order. And, you know, like I liked it in the minor leagues, you know, because I remember, and I've spoken to Straw and a couple guys here. You know, I had a guy give me, one of my minor league coaches that really influenced me, gave me, you know, two things. Well, first, in the minor leagues, they told me, see how many times you can lead a game off getting on base, be a walk, a bunt, a hit, or whatever it is. And, you know, I think I don't know what I got. I think I got up to 20 in one year. And then, you know, I took pride in starting the game off, you know, on base. And then also I remember Roy Campanella, once I got to the Dodgers, you know, he told me to see if I could go through spring training without striking out, you know, which I've given that to a challenge to a couple guys here, which I never made it. You know what I mean? I think I made it to the last day and I struck out twice that day. You know what I mean? I was almost you know, to the end, and I explained to him that, you know, the reason for that is when you come to spring training, you really don't know where the barrel of the bat is yet. And you see guys early in the spring, you know, there's contact marks from the ball all up and down, from the label or even at the handle all the way to the end. And Ted Williams used to put tape around his bat, and then he'd take it off to see, you know, if he was hitting the sweet spot on the bat. And by the end of the spring training, you know, he said that he had a mark the size of a quarter. You know, no, I swear, and it might have been a wives' tale, but I bought into it, you know. And so anyway, like I've told guys, and there's more hits down on the handle than there is on the end of the bat. So the reason for trying not to just to put the ball in play is to try to zero in by the end of spring training, where the bat head is. So, hopefully, keep your eye on a couple guys and see if they can make it to the spring.
That's cool. Hey, Dusty, during our broadcast last year, we would always talk about how indispensable and valuable Martin Maldonado was last year.
Mm-hmm.
And if he would have gone down last year with all those young pitchers, it felt like, the team might have collapsed. But James Click and you guys addressed a veteran catcher, Jason Castro, to have that combination. Doesn't that give you a lot more security?
Well, it does. I mean, if Maldi does go down, we know Jason, lives in the area. He's handled some of these guys in the past. Right. Him and Lance Colors have a lot in common. I guess they came up at the same time, or pretty much the same time. And and he's a left-handed bat. People want to know, am I going to platoon him, or how much he's going to play? A lot of that depends on Maldi's health. I try to play everybody to keep everybody strong down the stretch, but Maldi, deserves to be my number one catcher. This guy had his best offensive year last year, and he came into camp in great shape. And when he came in, I didn't really recognize him because he had, lost even more weight this year than he did last year. So I think it's a great. You got to have, two catchers, because it's such a volatile position. You're one foul tip away from a catcher being out. I mean, you look at Real Muto in Philadelphia. I mean, this guy, he's out for a month or so, and he was just catching bullpens. Yeah. And so, but also, I feel very comfortable at the same time, with having Stubbs, who I think is going to be a outstanding catcher, in the future as well. So you certainly got to have depth in all the positions, especially the catching position.
Welcome back to Astroline, presented by Carbach. Todd Callis, Steve Sparks. We're joined by the manager of the Houston Astros in his second season, live and direct from West Palm Beach, Florida. That is Dusty Baker. Excited to have him with us. And Dusty, last year, the regular season, a disappointment, 29-31. And one of the struggles you guys had was games in extra innings. The offense just didn't click in extra innings, whether it's situational hitting, getting the man over, getting the man in. Is that something you can work on, or is that just an organic thing that you guys need to do better this year?
Well, that is something you can work on. You could make them conscious of it. Like during batting practice. Before we're trying to bring back, get them over to third, get them in. Versus trying to slug your way and get everybody in and end up getting nobody in. And so, just playing good, solid, fundamental ball, and some clutch ball. But you got to have a mindset of in that situation of not home runs, but base hits or sacrifice fly, whatever you need, to get them in. And I was a little disappointed because I hadn't had a losing season in quite a while, and I at least wanted to finish 500. But the fact that our extra innings record wasn't very good. We had guys, Presley was trying to learn how to be a closer versus a setup man. And, we had a young bullpen. And so, I look at that record and you think about the 8 to 10 games that we lost in the 8th or 9th when we had the lead. And so, if you can just chip away at that and minimize that, because it's going to happen, try to minimize that. Extra, better base running, better fundamentally play, better, clutch hitting. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's all about, runs. Whoever scores one more run than the opposition is going to win the game. We make it kind of complicated sometimes, but the game's very, very simple. You just touch home plate one more time than they do, and we win the ball game.
Dusty, how much are you guys going to pay attention to the liveliness of the baseball? They're talking about deadening it to a degree. Do you think that'll show up in spring training, or are you guys going to pay attention?
it's a little different in spring training because the wind blows all the time, number one, and so it's hard to tell if the wind's blowing out, balls are flying out, the wind's blowing in, the ball doesn't go anywhere. So, Florida is something where almost the wind blows every day, whether it's a slight breeze or damn near like a hurricane. So, we really paid attention and we could see the difference, during the season last year, especially or the last couple of years, when you got right-hand hitters, hitting the ball out of right field, or center field, like a left-hand hitter. And, before you were pitching to the big part of the ballpark, and it wasn't a big part of the ballpark. Or, you'd say, if a guy hits it out of the opposite field, and you tip your hat to him. Well, there's a lot of hat tipping going on. So, so we'll see. We'll see. They're trying to, make the game more exciting. I've been on a couple meetings, trying to make the game more exciting and try to get back to the fans are missing, hit and runs and triples and doubles and stolen bases. And so hopefully this will promote, a little more, everyday exciting baseball.
Right.
Dusty, I said last segment, I was checking out some things on Baseball Reference. And of course, of your home runs, the most you hit was Dodger Stadium, second most Fulton County Stadium, because that was your home stadiums. Where do you think you hit the most home runs as a visiting player? Where would you guess? Was there a stadium that you felt like you hit well?
I know which stadium I hit the least in.
Astrodome?
No, not the Astrodome. It was Chicago. If the wind was
Wrigley Field.
Wrigley Field, yeah. If the wind was blowing in, I'd hit bombs that would be caught, and if the wind's blowing out, I hit ground balls. And so, I didn't see the ball well in Wrigley Field. I would guess. Probably it'd have to be in the Western Division because I was in that division for so long. It'd probably be, I hit pretty well in the Astrodome or maybe even, Philadelphia.
You got it. That's it.
Which one?
Veteran Stadium 13 and the Astrodome 13. You hit 297 at the Astrodome with 13 bombs, including your first ever home run.
Yeah, well, maybe that's why. You always remember the spot where you hit your first one and you feel very comfortable there. But I saw the ball well, even though the Astros had a great pitching staff. I saw the ball well there because it was so dark back there, and and I didn't try to hit the ball out of the ballpark, because if you tried to hit the ball out of the ballpark, you were done. Guys used to hate hitting in the Astrodome, but I would just try to hit the ball hard. Then you end up hitting the ball out of the ballpark anyway, And in Philadelphia, I saw the ball great too, because they had a big backdrop, back there in Philadelphia. You could see the ball look like big as a watermelon coming up there. But then when I'd go to Wrigley Field, I was kind of off center. I could never get comfortable at the plate because usually, the 403 sign or whatever it is right behind the pitcher. But in Wrigley Field, the center field dimensions were like more in right center field. So it's like I could never really, feel comfortable there, and probably and I didn't hit very well in the day games. Yeah, I like playing night baseball because I could see the rotation, I could see the seams, and at that time Wrigley we were playing all day games, and so it probably didn't help that I was out a couple nights either. But so. To tell the truth, you know what I mean? So, I couldn't just lie all the way, you know what I mean? So.
Hey, what's the secret to managing a superstar player?
The secret is, you gotta let him, be himself, without, everybody likes boundaries and certain rules, but you got to give your superstars a little more leniency, because like when I was in LA, we had rules, but some of the rules weren't as tightly enforced, on like Reggie Smith and Steve Garvey and myself, because, I wasn't a superstar, but Ron Say and some of the top players.
Yeah.
And I remember, they don't like, they're like a thoroughbred racehorse or a stallion where they don't really like that bridle in their mouth, and they really don't like to be ridden all the time. And I remember when I was a kid with the Braves, we had a curfew. We were in San Francisco, and we had a curfew, and it was 12 o'clock curfew for a day game the next day. We stayed at the Jack Tar up on Van Ness. It's probably not even there anymore. So Ralph Garr and myself, the guys took us out, and Joe Torre, Philippe Alou, Hank Aaron, Bob Tillman, Clete Boyer, and they took us. How you take the rookies out.
Yeah.
So we had a curfew at midnight, and about 10 minutes to 12. And my name was a kid, so they say, "Hey, kid, you better go home, man, because you got a curfew." So I said, "What about you guys?" And they're like, "Well, okay, we're coming." So I got back to the hotel, huffing and puffing, made it by 2 minutes, and then I looked down on the list, and Jim Busby was the coach, and Hank Aaron was checked off, Philippe Alou was checked off, Clete Boyer was checked off, all the guys that I was just with. And so I was being a little dumb rookie. So the next day I said, "Hey, man, how'd you guys get back so soon? I mean, you guys knew a shortcut or something?" They said, "Oh, no, kid, you'll learn. The better you hit, then the more leniency they'll give you on the curfew." So I learned that like right away.
That's great. Hey, during the off season, your son Darren is a big time prospect at Cal. Probably be a pro this time next year.
That's what he wants.
What did you guys talk about in the off season as far as his improvement at the plate and things like that?
Well, it actually helped him a lot to be at home because they weren't allowed to go to school.
Yeah.
And they weren't allowed. They took all their classes online. It helped his grades. Not to have to get up at 6:30 in the morning and go to weight training. And we hit
you.
Yeah, and we hit in the cage every day, and that's the most time I've spent with him, and actually spoiled me and him because he'd say, "Dad, can we hit today?" And then I got a batting cage, and then I have a weight room, and so he trained, ate up everything in the house. He gained like 10 or 12 pounds, and he's actually up to like 180 pounds. And he went to school, he was like 155, and I knew he was feeling pretty good about himself because he was walking around without a shirt on. I said, "Man, put your shirt on." You know what I mean? Just got a few muscles now, but he loves Michael Brantley's stroke, and so he was like, we were working on things, and I told him today. I called him today and I said, "Hey, I saw Michael Brantley hitting off the tee, with the one hand drill, and it's something that we did." And he said, "Oh yeah, Dad, I got to get back to that." So it's great to have a player like Michael or somebody and a gentleman, for him to emulate and try to be like.
Michael's a guy who last year was able to DH a little bit because Jordan was out for most of the season. Now Jordan's healthy. Do you see Jordan getting any starts in the outfield, or he'll be primarily a DH, and how does he look so far?
Well, I mean, I really haven't seen him because he's been more in the training room. We're trying not to to rush him because it's like, for a guy that played like myself, I played 10 years on a bad knee. My last 10 years, I didn't have one bad knee. He had 2 operations. So we really have to treat him with kid gloves. We're trying not to put him in the field, whether it's first base sometime or the outfield, because we don't want to break him down. We want to try to, help him get through the season and get stronger and stronger and stronger. So, even if he is healthy, we're gonna have to spot him sometime, and also spot Michael. And Michael would rather play the field than he would DH. Because it's not for DH isn't for everybody. Because sometimes, playing in the field keeps you more in the game versus just DH, and takes a special person to DH. But it sure was nice to have Jordan back for 2 days, and he comes right back, hits one out of the ballpark. So I mean, we need his bat. somewhere in the lineup. So we're just hoping that, and knock on wood, that he's healthy.
Last thing from me, Dusty, and with everything that's gone on in Texas in the last week and a half, I know you guys have been monitoring everything going on, but you got to be
Right.
pretty proud of the guys on your team and the way they stepped up for the community, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is one of the most community-minded teams that I've ever been on.
Yeah.
And these guys are very aware that they are part of the community. I had a long conversation with a lot of the guys that donated water. And I had a real long conversation with Bregman, that always steps up. Yep. You got Altuve and you got Correa, and all these guys always step up for the community. Yeah. And, I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, I talked to Bregman. He even said a couple politicians and civic leaders reached out to him, for some of his water. And so, the water is something that we, take for granted until you don't have it. And we're all praying for the people in Houston. I got a lot of friends and relatives there that were, really, really suffering, during this time period. And I just couldn't believe, what the city of Houston was going through, but that makes, people come together. It makes people, realize that, hey, we're in this together, and that it's good for the world, but bad for the city.
Dusty, I know the fans are excited with game starting Sunday, and we really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Astroline.
All right. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.